the passion, the energy, the power, the spirit of hardcore.
Hello, welcome everyone. Hello. This is my 10th year, and to begin, I'm going to show you why Windows is the best. No, I'm just joking. Imagine everyone would leave. So welcome. Hello, new guests. Old friends, new friends, and tomorrow's friends. Welcome to today's talk. My name is Amin Rafiee. I've been speaker at this event for 10 years, and it's been 10 years of learning and challenges and sometimes difficulties, but that's just part of the fun. Otherwise, we wouldn't grow. And today's talk is about illusion of choice. Now, that topic for me is very important because when we look at the array of choices that we have available to us, and we really dive into it, we come to realize that a lot of it are just illusions. They're not actual choices, though they feel like choices. And we'll dive into that as to why that is something we should consider. The other part of my talk is about my journey, everything I've been through in the last 10 years. Crypto is not a side hobby for me. I don't attend a 9 till 5 and then do crypto on the side. It's something I've committed myself since 2013. I left everything I was doing for it. I gave everything I had for it, and I did my best to educate people and share the knowledge while traveling all over the world. So I don't like the term digital nomad, but I've been roaming the planet since 2013. And that's a long time before digital nomad became a thing. And for me, it's been very interesting to travel while on crypto and only on crypto since then. Now, moving forward, I want to explore the stories, the challenges, and the lessons that I took from those journeys. So a little bit about myself. I won a UNESCO award for designing a program for refugees in 2015, along with other members of our team. And I was able to present that at the UNESCO House in Paris, and we won that award, and previous winners were Spotify, Airbnb, Twitter, etc. So it's quite prestigious. Apart from that, I have 2 articles published on the topic of decentralized autonomous universities and decentralized education, one of which will be published by Springer this month and presented in Chile. I've been a keynote speaker, as I said, at this event for 10 years and other events, and done a lot of other things that you can kind of see up there. Now, I love this because it encapsulates what I'm trying to get at, right? Choice is an illusion created by those who have power for those who have none. And when you first read that, you're like, that seems a bit rude. What are they trying to say with that? And it took me many years to really figure out what they're trying to say is that the illusions are created to keep those that don't question them in a little maze so they can keep running around and never questioning what's outside of that. Now, I can give you some examples of that. Some examples of that would be iPhone versus the Samsung phone. It would be, do you use Google or do you use Apple? And for 90% plus of people, these are the only choices they consider, right? Maybe Microsoft as well, to make it, a bit more spicy. But these are all illusions. And some people may not like to hear that, but that is the truth. We're not here to tell you things that are simple. Now, I want to show you this video before I get into it. This is kind of my iconic moment before I start my talks. Just to have a laugh, and also it puts things into a very beautiful perspective. So, if you may, please play this video.
Worried about saving endangered species. Let me tell you about endangered species, all right? Saving endangered species is just one more arrogant attempt by humans to control nature. It's arrogant meddling. It's what got us in trouble in the first place. Doesn't anybody understand that? Interfering with nature. Over 90%, way over 90% of all the species that have ever lived on this planet, are gone. They're extinct. We didn't kill them all. They just disappeared. That's what nature does. They disappear these days at the rate of 25 a day. And I mean regardless of our behavior. Irrespective of how we act on this planet, 25 species that were here today will be gone tomorrow. Let them go gracefully. Leave nature alone. Haven't we done enough? We're so self-important. So self-important. Everybody's gonna save something now. Save the trees, save the bees, save the whales, save those snails. And the greatest arrogance of all, save the planet. What? Are these fucking people kidding me? Save the planet? We don't even know how to take care of ourselves yet. We haven't learned how to care for one another. We're gonna save the fucking planet? I'm getting tired of that shit. Tired of that shit. Tired. I'm tired of fucking Earth Day. I'm tired of these self-righteous environmentalists, these white bourgeois liberals who think the only thing wrong with this country is there aren't enough bicycle paths. People trying to make the world safe for their Volvos. Besides, environmentalists don't give a shit about the planet. They don't care about the planet. Not in the abstract, they don't. Not in the abstract, they don't. You know what they're interested in? A clean place to live. Their own habitat. They're worried that someday in the future they might be personally inconvenienced. Narrow, unenlightened self-interest doesn't impress me. Besides, there is nothing wrong with the planet. Nothing wrong with the planet. The planet is fine. The people are fucked. Difference. Difference. The planet is fine. Compared to the people, the planet is doing great. It's been here 4.5 billion years. Did you ever think about the arithmetic? Planet has been here 4.5 billion years. We've been here, what, 100,000? Maybe 200,000? And we've only been engaged in heavy industry for a little over 200 years. 200 years versus 4.5 billion. And we have the conceit to think that somehow we're a threat? That somehow we're going to put in jeopardy this beautiful little blue-green ball that's just a-floating around the sun? The planet has been through a lot worse than us. Been through all kinds of things worse than us. Been through earthquakes, volcanoes, plate tectonics, continental drift, solar flares, sunspots, magnetic storms, the magnetic reversal of the poles, hundreds of thousands of years of bombardment by comets and asteroids and meteors, worldwide floods, tidal waves, worldwide fires, erosion, cosmic rays, recurring ice ages, and we think some plastic bags and some aluminum cans are going to make a difference? The planet isn't going anywhere. We are. We're going away. Pack your shit, folks. We're going away. And we won't leave much of a trace. Worried about saving endangered species.
Anyway, I thought to have a laugh with that. I think it puts things into perspective because people often get so caught up in these, let's say, distractions that are put towards people. And some people may not appreciate that video, and that's okay. You can think about why, because a lot of it is truth. But we live in an era where people are being gaslighted. This is the era of gaslighting, right? Anything you question, there's something wrong with you, right? Don't question the narrative. It's all the way it's supposed to be, and that's the way we go about it. Any topic you bring up, you're often gaslighted, whether it's through media, whether it's through your friends, whether it's through your professional life, wherever it is. I don't really appreciate that, but it doesn't really bother me personally because I go about my day. I don't really think about these things too often. I live in a nice bubble. But the reality is that we live in an era of gaslighting, and we'll see examples of that through my talk. And it's unfortunate that people have allowed this to happen. Now, this is my first talk. I don't really want to play the video, we don't have to. But this is in 2014 at my first talk in Amsterdam. A lot has happened since those days, right? When I first started talking about Bitcoin in 2013 and 14, the world was very different. The mission, the aim, the goal, a lot of it has changed. And why did it change? Some may say because of the tourists that came into the field, right? And who are the tourists? Let's explore that. This is another talk from my first talk in HCPP, or we can skip that too. I guess just give you but a lot has changed, a long way. I actually do want to play this video. So this is a talk from a well-known TV channel in Australia. They interviewed me to talk about Bitcoin. And back then, it was this thing where, well, it still hasn't changed. People called it a scam, a bubble, and all these things. And for me, it was very interesting to come and speak to SBS television, which is probably the most well-regarded television station in Australia, about the other functions of it and show them, hold on, this isn't just about, putting money into something and waiting for it, when Lambo sort of thing. There's a lot of deeper layers to why people are attracted to Bitcoin and why they're attracted to decentralized cryptocurrencies. People would believe in personal freedom. People who want to keep their hard-earned money the way that they choose to should look into Bitcoin and why it's important and why it allows them to improve on the current system. So for me, it's a way of overcoming limitations in today's society. And it's a system not based on debt, and I think that's very important. Pretty much like any other job, I just earned my salary, or if I did a project, I got the salary, I opted to earn, to get the salary what they pay in crypto. And like any other form of money, I would use it to, back then it was much harder. So I would use it to pay my rent, my daily expenses, and find ways where I can exchange it for cash so, I can do other things that, for leisure. So back then it was much harder, but now you have Bitcoin debit cards. So, you can just register, verify yourself, and from there use your Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies to exchange it to fiat money, which is the USD, Australian dollar, whatever it is. And like any other Visa card or MasterCard, you can use it to pay your bills. So these kind of tools are improving the way where you can exchange it. But it's been a very interesting path, earning your complete salary for the past 3 years and not using a bank account, whether directly or indirectly. So directly would mean that in the Netherlands, for example, or in Germany, you have a lot of websites where you can directly pay with Bitcoin. So they have Thijs Bezorgd, for example, in the Netherlands, which is like takeaway. So you order food, at the end of it, instead of checking out with a credit card or you pay the guy in cash, you just pay with Bitcoin. And they have a lot of these services. You have online merchants that accept it on a wide array. So, it's quite direct that way. And you can also use it indirectly by trading it for cash and then, from there using it as you would any other form. It's quite hard to see its true power yet. We need systems to improve. We need it to kind of be established enough so you can have its own path. So yeah, limitations existed. It was kind of hard at first to find a place where I can exchange it to cash and be able to use it. But because of the introduction of new services like Bitcoin debit cards and things like that, and the ability to have a service where I can send them Bitcoin and they can pay my rent, it became much easier. And I believe it will keep becoming, people would believe in. All right, cool. So what changed? It went from that to HODL, to when Lambo, to don't spend your crypto, just sit on it, that's crazy, to the point where I even tell people, hey, you can buy cryptos in person from other people using cash. And they go, wow, how? So somewhere along the line, the narrative changed and people forgot the beginning. Now, what happened? Tourists happened. And just like any form of tourism, negative impacts are brought with it, which means that people that didn't understand the culture or where they were and how things operated entered the space. And they hijacked the space. And they changed the narrative, and they changed the mission and goals. So if you were in the crypto space prior to 2015, 16, even let's say early 2017, the mission was about, we don't like banks, we don't like the way money is produced, and we don't really appreciate the negative impact a debt-based currency has had on society. Now, if any normal person sat down, and I have done this because I've done hundreds of workshops with just, people with no technical background, and I explained to them, hey, what would you call it if I sat down and I produced money, which is backed by debt, and I explained to them, in a very simple way how money production works in today's day. And they go, oh, isn't it backed by gold? There's still people that believe currency is backed by gold. That hasn't happened for a very long time. The other people in the room often say, oh, but that sounds like a Ponzi scam. I'm like, right? It is a Ponzi scam. So when you access people's inner child, the innocence, and you reach that part and you explain to them, as you would to a kindergarten student, they suddenly see it. They're like, this doesn't sound right. This sounds scammy. And you're like, yes. The inner child always knows when there's something wrong. But somewhere along the line, people forgot that. And they went to work, and they're earning money based on a system which is terrible in many, many ways. And I'm sure many of you have seen the consequences of that. And then we have issues like this. So when I first got into crypto, everything was on IRC. And I consider anyone who doesn't know how to work IRC a tourist of this space. And it's not anything personal. It's just how things started. And where are we now? We're on some crappy platform called Discord. How did that happen? Right? Tourists happened. People let go of the mission. People let go. They deviated from the path. You cannot deviate from the path, because if you deviate a little bit, who's to say that you're not going to keep going and going and going? And literally, 2-3 years later down the track, you've lost the point of, hey, why did I even get into this? And you lose sight of what was actually important. Now, I wanted to delve more into it and be like, okay, can I compare what happened to crypto to what happens in real life with tourism, right? So what are the negative impacts of tourism on society? And you'll often hear people, they'll be like, oh, you should have checked out Mexico 10 years ago. It was just so different. Now tourism has changed it, right? You very often hear these stories of people who were in a certain city many years ago, and they tell you, oh, if only you had the opportunity to see it. The same thing happened with Bitcoin, right? So if you're in it from the start, it was beautiful. I loved it. I loved it right up to maybe 2018. After that, I lost a lot of, let's say, inspiration to continue putting my heart towards it. Because the culture changed, just like this. It was like being in Berlin 30 years ago compared to today. Good luck enjoying it today. I don't even enjoy being on a bus going through Berlin today. You know, when my plane left Berlin, I was like an evil man going, ha ha ha, I'm leaving. I'm finally free. And it's not a negative thing towards Berlin. It's just the locals allowed it to happen. So they're just as responsible, right? It's not just, oh, these people came and they changed us. No, they are just as responsible. It's a two-way road. So Bitcoiners and the people within this space are just as responsible as the people who have damaged the space. That's why we have events like Bitcoin Miami, filled with 15,000 people, and we have events like HCPP, which is a work of art, which has beautiful speakers, and you have what, 500 people? Let's say 1,000 at its prime. So why is one 15 times, if not 30 times more people? And yet this one is in Europe, much more accessible. Why? Why is Bitcoin Miami filled with all that garbage and drama and shows? Why? And people think, oh, I went to Bitcoin Miami, wow. It's a joke. So we can compare these and we can learn a lot from it, you know? Environmental degradation, just think of it as the environment in the Bitcoin space. Cultural erosion, think of it as the culture in the Bitcoin space. Inequality, all of these things, you know, it became about, oh, this guy raised $5 million, oh yeah, this part $10 million. Where's the message about, hey, banking is really bad, the fiat money is really bad? Where's that message anymore? I don't hear much of it anymore. It's dissipated, and now it's all about other things. But it's not all so sad. There are other things going on that are pretty good. So this part of it, talk, for me is where are we at today? And how can we relate to this? So what's going on today? Telegram founder arrested. Okay. What if it was decentralized? What if it was different? Thank God there's SimpleX. That's great. I enjoy using SimpleX. Crypto anarchists are using macOS and iPhones. That's interesting. Oh, because it's convenient. Hold on. Isn't that the reason everyone else uses it? They're not using it because they're like, oh, I love Apple. Sorry, I just have this relationship with Apple. No, they use it because it's convenient. Convenience is the reason everything in this world has turned to shit. But yet we have people that are calling themselves crypto anarchists who are using iPhones and macOS. Interesting. Then you hear this often, especially in this theme. Telegram is spyware. It's Russian spyware. Don't use it. I hear this so many times. I'm like, hold on. Didn't he leave Russia because Putin wanted him to put access to it? So shouldn't you be a fan of him? But yet he's a Russian spyware maker. Okay, We'll pretend that's the case. But hold on, you're on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. Those are not spyware, but the Telegram one is, right? Like, what's going on? How does that make sense? So this hypocrisy that exists has eroded the culture because the walk doesn't match the talk. And people are just going around sharing this information, and people look up to them. They're like, oh, there's the crypto-anarchist. Yeah, he's using a MacBook, mate. Yeah, not open source. Definitely not great if you've watched any or read any of the stuff from Snowden. But they're our leaders. Fantastic. Don't trust, verify. Unless it's convenient? Okay, interesting. So, beyond that, what else is going on? People often don't know what's going on. So in 2020, Google got sued because they were tracking users in incognito mode. And sometimes people thought incognito mode is something that's private, which, fair enough, they thought that. But it's not. Now that shocked a lot of people. So then people learned about VPNs. What's wrong with VPNs? 99% of VPNs are terrible. But people don't know. Yeah, they watch the TV and they're like, ExpressVPN. It's like, you should never use ExpressVPN if you look into the history of where they come from. Right? But they think they know things. Right? Arrogance is a very, very terrible thing because it blinds people to reality. They think they know things. Do you know how many clients I've had that have lost hundreds and hundreds, if not millions of dollars because they used some scammy exchange? I had a client 2 weeks ago. I told her, $250 an hour, I'll sit down with you, I'll go through everything you're doing. A week later, I mean, you were right. My dad did get scammed. He just lost over $100,000. I'm like, isn't that funny? Because I often tell clients, pay for my time and I'll look after you. And they think, no, I know how to do it better. I have this guy on YouTube. I'm like, okay, nice. But then they go and lose $100,000 or $50,000 or $20,000. Why? Because they think they know better. The greatest thing you can do in life is find advisors, right? If I don't know how to cook something, I'll find someone that knows. I'll be like, hey, you've cooked this meal before. What do you think? Am I doing it right? If I don't know how to do something, that's what you do. Unless, you think you're... But that's a different story. But they don't do these things. And as I said, 99% of VPNs are absolutely terrible. There's probably two that I really do trust. One is Molvad, one is iVPN. And that's where it gets interesting because there is hundreds upon hundreds of VPN providers. And then you got Proton, which just gives you what? Like the whole package? Put all your eggs in one basket, yeah? Give us your password, give us your drive, Proton password, Proton documents, Proton, all the goods, right? Just keep it all with us. Poor approach and protocol for privacy and security. Like there's a reason they say don't keep all your eggs in one basket. But these things happen. Now, the Kim.com one is mind-blowing. Who here knows Kim.com? Yeah? For sure, he's been in the privacy space and, this stuff for a long time. We all know his story. They tried to extradite him to the US for making mega videos. He sold the company, now it's called Mega, and it's got nothing to do with him anymore. And he finally, the court case after, I don't know how many years, 15 years, 20 years, came to a conclusion and he is being extradited to the US. So a lot of people have respect for him for the things he went through, right? Yet he came out and said something insane. He's like, go get a Hawaii phone because it's better to have your data stored in China. And people liked it. They're like, yeah, I've just got a Hawaii phone. Yeah, thanks, Kim. I'm like, what is going on? The last thing that's going on right now, in the UK, people are being sent to jail for social media posts. If I told you this 4 years ago, you'd be like, that's crazy. I mean, that's never going to happen. That's happening. So let's go through it. This is the lad that got sent to jail. I don't know, it doesn't seem that extreme to me. Loves his country. Seems pretty legit. People like him. They even supported him. So what's the issue? Apparently he can't be patriotic anymore. Apparently that's, I don't know, offends people. And here's Kim.com's one. I mean, I can't make this stuff up. I could never make this up. I can't believe he actually wrote this. Pro tip even, you're welcome. You know? Wow, the arrogance. I don't even know what to say to that. I wrote back to it, but like, what's that gonna do? It's insane. Do you understand why this is insane? Do you have questions for me? Like, do you want me to go into it deeper? Yeah, I think it's pretty, apparent why this is insane. But he says these things, and people listen to it, and they're like, oh, what do you know? He's Kim Duck. It's like, oh, okay. Apparently I can't have an opinion because it's Kim, Apparently he doesn't make mistakes. So the world is getting crazy, and the illusion of choice is everywhere. I was in Mexico, I was looking for soap. Different path. I went up and down the aisle for probably an hour. I felt like a madman. I was just in the store for an hour looking at all the ingredients. I'm like, poison, 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 poison. This is all nasty stuff. It's got perfume in it, which is made from synthetic material. By law, they don't have to tell you what's in the perfume. All they have to say is perfume or fragrance, and that's it. But if you look into what they put in the fragrance and perfume, you'll learn that it contains a lot of neurotoxins, which is what people get addicted to. That's why they're like, oh, I like my washing detergent, because they're hooked to it, like a amphetamine. And it's crazy. I went up and down an aisle. I'm like, isn't it insane? Among hundreds of products, I couldn't find one bar of soap. That's just like normal. Can I just have like 2 ingredients, like back in the days? Previous to 1950s, people used to make their own soap. There was no like going and buying soap like from all this stuff. People used to make it. They used to make their own shampoo, soap, whatever. But now it's like looking for this Egyptian relic, It's like I'm Indiana Jones looking for this, like, where is the soap? I've heard things about this soap. Or like buying a drink. I often go crazy. I'm just like, can I just have like a normal drink? And I'm looking at it, I'm like, it looks great. The illusion of choice, right? Look how much choice I have. Look at it looks great. They've even like tidied it up. And you're like, surely I can drink one of these. But no, it's insane. Anyway, then I come to Europe. And I used to live in Europe for about 5 or 6 years. Netherlands, Germany, Cyprus, and many other places. And it just gets progressively worse. I don't know why. I didn't want that to happen to Europe. I used to love coming to Europe. Now I can't wait to leave. No offense, it's nothing personal, but it's just like once you see people treat you nicely, with respect, kindness, they look into your eyes, hello, how are you? Have a good day. You come here, they don't even look at you in the eyes. Not even a smile, not even, hello, how are you? Good, thank you, how are you? In Germany, I said, hello, how are you? In German to some lady at the checkout. She nearly started crying. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? It's like she hadn't received such, anyway, it was insane. And then I go to the airport and it's like, oh, you got to pay a fee because you didn't check in. I'm like, what are you talking about, mate? My flight isn't for another 2 hours. That's what I do everywhere. He's like, yeah, that's just how it works here. I'm like, that sounds a bit communist. What do you mean? So if you look at the Austrian economics policies, which a lot of people at these events really enjoy, you'll find that transparency is a big part of doing business. When you act sleazy like this, and sly and put fees, and you're like, oh, 50 euro flight, great. Oh, with a backpack. With a backpack? What do you mean with a backpack? What kind of a life is that? I don't want to travel with a backpack. What, a laptop, a t-shirt, a jumper, a couple of undies? Like, what is that? When I first left Iran in 1997, came to Australia, you were allowed to have 2 32-kilo bags per person. We came with Emirates to Sydney, and we were allowed 2 32-kilo bags per person. Now, good luck, it's dropped down to 23 kilos. It's not even included. You got to pay for it. And is this the pinnacle of human existence? Is this the greatest era of humanity? Is it? Yeah. True. True. Thanks. So, I watched Australia change, and that was heartbreaking. I watched Europe change, everyone saw Canada change, and the change is coming. A lot of people are in denial about it. I speak to some people and they're like, oh no, there's nothing going on. It's just, powers are changing, it's a natural thing. I'm like, okay, so you think everything that's going on is natural? Yes. Interesting. Now, the problem I have is I've seen what can happen. And if there's people here from Eastern Europe, they've seen what happened. If you're Czech, you've seen what happens. But people forget, right? You give it 1 generation, 2, for sure it's gone, the memory. So then they have to relive through it to figure out what happened and why did the previous ancestors warn them of these days. Now, on a different topic, I sat down and go, let's forget about conspiracy. My dad said something really powerful to me, which came from someone he had heard. I don't know who he was. I forget his name. But he said, if you let go of conspiracy and you sit down and you actually make a plan on how you would destroy a nation or multiple nations, forget about conspiracy. Just sit down on your own. How would I destroy a nation? And if you make a plan and that plan somehow matches the reality of what's going on, chances are you have reverse engineered what's actually happening. And that's freaky. So I did that. I sat down and I'm like, okay, if I was to, undermine a nation and establish a dystopian regime, how would I do it? What are the 11 things that I would do? And these are the things that I came up with. Or you can do the reverse and create a powerful nation, right? So you can flip this and create a nation which is very, very powerful. And we've seen examples of that throughout history. We don't have to theorize about it. We have actual examples. And when you look at these points or topics, we can see that a lot of them apply. I would say all of them apply. Like in Australia, for a very long time, they denationalized a lot of our companies. We used to produce everything, right? In the name of globalization, a lot of these things changed, which means now if there's a tough time, the country doesn't have the resources because it's all over there. And if there's a logistical issue, which we saw in the last 4 years, you're screwed. Because you've outsourced everything to the point where there's nothing inside the country. That's why countries like Mexico are so powerful. In Mexico, you can get your headphone repaired if you wanted to. So my earphones broke, and I took it to a guy and he repaired it. Where else can you do that? You take it somewhere, they're like, just go get a new one, right? But they actually repaired it for me. What did he want? Just, a can of Coca-Cola, whatever, that's his thing. And that's it. So this was heartbreaking for me. It took me many, 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 many years of attending events, learning about people. And it's not to say I'm not one of them. I could be one of them. But the most powerful thing you can learn is that what I showed you, right? Crypto-anarchists using MacBook and iPhones. If we don't hold people accountable, we allow the erosion of the culture to continue. And this for me is very interesting because I always, when I was younger, used to go to events and be like, oh, that guy's there. Oh, wow. And the more I attended and the more questions I asked and the more topics we explored, I realized, that doesn't seem like how I imagined it. So things changed. Another thing I've seen change at a lot of these events is the use of drugs. Now, I didn't say this, my friend did. He goes, do you understand drugs is a form of mind control? So if you're a true anarchist and you oppose control, you should understand that drugs is a form of control. I'm like, damn, never thought about it like that. He's like, absolutely. What does it do? It allows you to escape reality, right? It allows you to be numbed out. It allows you to kind of forget about what's going on and focus on other things and just be a bit silly. Escapism, distraction. And that's, people's personal choice. But when it's at events and it's impacting the people at the events, and the quality of their talks and the quality of the event suddenly is degraded because of it, that's a bit of a problem. But if you do it at home, you're watching TV, whatever, that's your business. Now, I use this a lot in my talks and also for my clients when I teach. And it's very, very important because we're very, let's say, quick to say proton mail is not good because those two activists got caught and the IP addresses were released by proton mail. And therefore, proton mail is evil. It's like, hold on a sec. Are you saying a drunk driver that got into a car and crashed it into the wall and the car was a Mercedes, now Mercedes is evil? Or is the drunk driver the problem? So if someone used the tool and didn't know how to use it and didn't go, hey, can someone help me? I'm trying to do something, I can't disclose what. How do I use proton without exposing myself? It's a very simple question. I'm sure 10 people would have helped them straight away. You can even contact Proton and they would have told you, because they have a darknet version, so they have the onion router version of their service. They also offer their VPN for free to use their service. So when they have provided the tools and knowledge and ways to use their service in a clean way, and you didn't listen, you thought you knew better, and you got into trouble, and now you come after Proton as though they did something wrong, that's not fair. Or if you use Signal and don't realize, hold on, don't use the same number that's linked to your ID that you went into Vodafone, you're like, can I have a phone plan? And you're like, oh, I'll register Signal with this. And now your name is on a list of other people because you were part of some group. That's not Signal's fault. That's just not knowing how to use the tool correctly. And there's always people that will help you. You can come to this event and ask anyone, hey, how do I use Signal without exposing my phone number? Very easy. You're in Czech, go get a SIM card. It's anonymous, it's accessible. You go activate the SIM card, register Signal. Finished, move on. It's not complicated. But we can just ask people and humble ourselves to be like, maybe I don't know everything, can you please teach me? But that seems to be getting harder and harder for people to ask. And maybe they sit there talking to ChatGPT, I don't know. But this happens. And we've seen examples of it with Signal, with Telegram, with Proton, with Bitcoin, all of it. So Bitcoin in a lot of communities has become, what do they call it? The surveillance coin. So a lot of communities are now referring to Bitcoin as a surveillance coin. And that for me is interesting. Because it's how you use it. Of course, if you go buy your Bitcoin off a centralized exchange with your ID, and you think somehow, because it's Bitcoin, it offers you some sort of a protection, regardless of how you purchased it, that's just misunderstanding the process, right? So it's not going to cover you, regardless of how you use it. A lot of times it's how you use it. I would like to show you another video. This video for me is very important because it showed me something that I had missed all along. So when I first started talking about Bitcoin at this event, I remember in 2017 or 18, everyone was like, Bitcoin is going to change everything. It's going to change the way we interact with the world, the way we interact with finance. It's going to change who we are. And I said, no, it's just a technology. Unless you change, and unless you change your actions or whatever protocols you have towards privacy, security, your life, Bitcoin is not some miracle entity, just like any other technology. It's you that needs to apply different protocols to your life. And now, many years later, I understood the value of that, because now we see Bitcoin didn't change much, right? What did it actually change for the better? Apart from those that have it and use it, which is a very small percentage of people. But for the majority of people, what did it change? Come meet me afterwards and tell me. I don't think many people ask this question. Bitcoin, in all its greatness and all its magic, what did it actually change for the better? Are the banking systems stopped? No, BlackRock is buying it. And people are like, yeah, BlackRock is buying Bitcoin. That is not a good thing. BlackRock owns something like 40% of the entire world assets through Aladdin, their, let's say, machine learning algorithm. That's insane when you actually think about it. I don't know how many people knew that. You should look into BlackRock Aladdin. It will freak you out. Something like 50% of the housing market in the US is owned by private institutions. So what did it actually change for the better? Let's watch this video. It's a good one.
And Mr. Shoaff gave me probably the greatest clue he gave me when I first met him. He said, Jim, if you want to be wealthy and happy the rest of your life, just learn this lesson well. He said, learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Then Mr. Shoaff gave me probably one of the most important clues among so many things he taught me, but this was in those early days. Mr. Shoaff was very kind, but he was also very abrupt. And he had these interesting questions to ask. I'm giving him a little rundown one day on how things hadn't worked out for me. He said, Mr. Owen, I've got the answer for you if you will listen carefully. And listen carefully I did that day and for the next 5 years. If somebody's wealthy and happy, you gotta listen. He said, Jim, I've only known you a short time. But he said, it's already my honest opinion that for things to change for you, you've got to change. That wasn't quite the answer I was looking for. But that's the answer he gave me, and I pass it along to you on this warm summer evening in Anaheim, California, 1981. For things to change for you, you've got to change. Otherwise, it isn't going to change. Before I met Mr. Shelf, I used to say, I sure hope things will change. Right? That seemed to be my only hope. If it isn't going to change, I'm in serious trouble. And then I discovered it isn't going to change, so I'm in serious trouble. See, I can tell you what the 80s are going to be like. You have dropped into the right place. I did a seminar one time for Standard Oil executives and management in Honolulu. And we're having a conference one day on this big conference table. And one of them said to me, Mr. Rohn, you know some fairly important people halfway around the world. What do you think the 80s are going to be like? I said, gentlemen, I do know the right people. I can tell you. So they all listened very carefully. And I said, gentlemen, based on my wide experience, I can really honestly say to you, in my opinion, in the 80s, it's going to be about like it's always been. Aren't you glad you came? That's inside. I don't pass that around just everywhere. Now, of course, I said that to make a point, but I also said it because it's accurate. It's going to be about like it's always been. It isn't going to change. The tide comes in, and then what? It goes out. For 6,500 years that we know of, recorded history, and probably long before that. So it is not going to change. It gets light, and then what? It turns dark. 6,500 years. See, it's not likely to change. And we're not to be startled by that. If the sun goes down, the guy says, what's happened, what's happened? It means he hasn't been here long, I guess, right? It always goes down about this time. The guy says, well, I don't like that arrangement. Well, you got to talk to somebody besides me, right? It gets light, then it turns dark. In rotation, the next season after fall is what? Winter. Pray tell, how often does winter follow fall? Every year regularly for the last 6,500 that we know of. See, it is not going to change. Now, some winters are long, and some are short, and some are hard, and some are easy, but they always come right after falls. It isn't going to change. Sometimes you can figure it out, sometimes there's no way to figure it out. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it gets in a knot. Sometimes it sails along, sometimes it gets in reverse. See, that's not going to change. The last 6,000 years reads like this: opportunity mixed with difficulty. That's how it reads. It isn't going to change. The man says, well, if it isn't going to change, how will my life ever change? Answer, when you change. And whether I'm talking to high school kids or business executives, my message is always the same. And it goes like this: the only way it gets better for you is when you get better. Let me give you the 4 major lessons in life to learn. Here's 4 majors. It's good to study the majors. In our weekend seminar we teach, some people don't do well because they major in minor things. You've got to be on the lookout. At the end of every week, end of every month, you've got to check, make sure you're not spending major time on minor things. Hey, we go through that whole series. Majors and minors. Now, let me give you 2 phrases before we get to the 4 majors. This will set it up and you'll see where I'm going. 2 key phrases for your notes. Here's the first one. Life and business is like the changing seasons. That's the first phrase. life and business is like the changing seasons. One of the best ways to describe life, it's like the seasons. Frank Sinatra sings, life is like the seasons. Now here's the second phrase. Very important. You cannot change the seasons, but you can change yourself. You can't change the seasons, but you can change yourself. And see, that's how life gets better for you, not by chance, but by change. Now, here's the 4 major lessons in life to learn. I've got my first book finished, came out a couple of weeks ago. This is in it, the 4 major lessons in life to learn. Here they are. Number 1, learn how to handle the winters. That's lesson 1. They come right after falls, with regularity. Some are long and some are short and some are hard and some are easy, but they keep coming. You must learn to handle the nights. They come right after days. You must learn to handle difficulty. It comes right after opportunity. You must learn to handle recessions. They always follow progressions for the last 6,000. See, it isn't going to change. The lesson you must learn is how to handle it. And there's all kinds of winters, right? The winter when you can't figure it out. The winter when it all goes smash. The winter when it turns belly up. The winter when it won't work, when you've run out of money and you've got a broken heart. See, those are winter times. There's all kinds. Economic winters, social winters, personal winters. When your heart is smashed in 1,000 pieces. And Mr.
Anyway, so I guess the greatest thing I can share with you that I've learned over the last 10 years is to think in value. Value is represented in nature. When you think in value, you stop thinking in terms of wages, hourly pay, and it changes the entire scope of your approach, whether it's through business, relationships, or otherwise. Value is very, very important. It took me a long time to get to a point where I could charge clients $250 an hour. And now that I have reached that point, not recently, but once I reached that, I actually understood that's not enough. Why? Because it took me a long time to learn the things that I did. And it just didn't seem like enough. And that might freak some people out. And that's okay. Because I've been on both sides of those fence, right? I've been on the side where I'm like, oh, I'll help you, don't worry about it. And I've been on the other side where I'm like, you should worry about it. And I can tell you, it feels a lot more, let's say, self-respecting to value yourself and to value the things you've learned. Unfortunately, the greatest thing that I saw in this space was people who didn't have the actual work done, who were doing things that once you dwell into it, you're like, okay, you actually don't have the knowledge, but yet you're charging ridiculous amounts. And 90% of the events I went to was filled with people just making money off things that weren't that valuable. So then it allowed me to change the entire scope of how I approached business, how I approached clients, how I approached different things. And there'll be people along the way that'll be like, they'll try and put you down for trying to value yourself. That's okay, that's how society is built, the era of gaslighting, right? In Australia, we call this the tall puppy syndrome. And the UK culture has this as well, the British culture, which is when the puppy is tall standing out from the rest, you put it down. You're like, oh, look at this guy, who does he think he is? All of these are built into our cultures to keep people down and to make others feel secure. But I'm done making other people feel secure. I want you all to feel insecure. I want you to go home and be like, what am I doing with my life? I want to go home feeling the same after this event too. Those are not your friends that want to keep you from exploring your value. They're your enemy, whether knowing consciously or unconsciously. The true friend is the person that sees you, like my business mentor, and he said to me, why aren't you a billionaire? He was so confused. He had worked with some of the highest ranking people in society. He said, you have so much knowledge. You're well presented. You're great, great at communicating. What is the problem here? I feel like you've been hijacked by communism. And that really took, I went home and I thought about it. I'm like, wow, he's kind of got a point. He's like, I need more people like you to become billionaires because the other people aren't doing well. They're doing all kinds of nasty stuff with their money. But someone like you that has integrity, that can present it, that has some ethical values, moral values, maybe you can do something good with it. So I'm going to train you. And he did. And it changed my life. And I understood, God, if only I had learned this 10 years ago. And that's on me, it's not on anyone else. But value is so important. And to think like that, it changes everything. You know, if I say to you, hey, I charged, whatever, let's say $500 an hour to look at your crypto protocols and privacy protocols, that might sound expensive. But if you pitch it this way and you say, hold on, what is the cost to you if you do this wrong? And you go, oh, if I do something wrong, I could lose maybe 50,000, maybe 100,000. Okay. So I'm asking for $500 to protect you from losing $50,000 to $100,000. Doesn't that seem fair? They'll be like, yeah, that actually seems a little bit low, if anything. Right? So it's all about context. Whereas if you sit down with them, they're like, well, I need to see how many hours you spent on this. You'll be like, sorry, mate, I don't do hourly. That's not how things work. So value is probably the greatest thing I learned in the last 10 years. And that might be different for each person. So the takeaway for me is value what you have learned. If you haven't learned it, go learn it. There's a lot of people that are great advisors. The other part is have integrity and try and preserve the culture of things that you obtain, such as the crypto space, such as crypto anarchy. And hold people accountable. If someone's like talking to you about crypto anarchy, you see, hey, hold on, why are you using a MacBook? Sit down and ask them, go, mate, why are you using a MacBook? But you said you're a crypto anarchist. And maybe you're not, that's cool, use it if not. But if you're gonna stand in front of me and call yourself a crypto anarchist and you're a speaker and you're preaching privacy and security, we need to have a little chat because this does not match what's going on. And that's okay, you should do that. You should always hold people accountable. Otherwise, you're part of the problem. I would be part of the problem, and I was part of the problem. Anyway, thank you for coming. Thank you for listening to the knowledge that was shared with you. I hope you take something of value from it. And it's been an honor speaking here for the past 10 years. And thank you for all the volunteers that make this happen and the wonderful people that create this from the love in their heart. Thank you so much.
So I think we have a lot of similar points of view, and there's a number of people that spoke yesterday that are also coming from the point of view that if you expect to see change in the world, that you need to start inside of yourself. And I think that you probably also have the experience of meeting people where it is that they're at. So I'd like to challenge you on the MacBook thing, crypto anarchist thing. If I'm out speaking with people and communicating with people about values and the past that they have and the choices that they can make in their life, if they're not on Amir's client, where do I talk to them electronically about these things? If they're on a MacBook and I have a MacBook and an iPhone.
More like meet them where they are.
Yeah.
I mean, MacBook doesn't itself present a software that you can't use on other platforms, apart if you're using like iMessages or something. But that's a different story.
So, I mean, is there a I guess the challenge that I'm asking, is there a disconnect between meeting people where they're at on their technological and social communication devices about these ideas? Can I call myself a crypto anarchist or not? I mean, you're basically saying no.
No. Because I don't think that's true though. I don't think people have a MacBook in the crypto anarchist space because they want to meet people where they're at. I think that would apply to, I've never met someone like that. So
that's me.
If it's you, good on you. But then I would also expect you to have a normal platform, a normal laptop, a normal, let's say Graphene OS phone, where that's your normal life, but hey, out of the kindness of my heart, because I want to meet people where they're at, I'm also going to have a MacBook. I think that's such a low percentage.
Can we raise some hands in the room from people that consider themselves to adhere to crypto anarchist principles and have MacBooks and communicate with people that are also crypto anarchists and might not yet be crypto anarchists or have done so in the last 5 years? You're basically, I think cutting off a percentage of people that are out there doing good work. But I don't want to, like, you know, throw that in your face. I just say that's like, you know, there's some gray areas there.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't see it black and white. There's definitely gray areas. My aim is to focus on the majority. And the majority, for me, when I speak to them, they go, oh, but MacBook looks pretty. Oh, it's convenient. I have never actually heard the perspective that you said, which for me is crazy because MacBook is not cheap. So for me to actually accept that someone went and paid, what, $2,000 just so they can meet people where they're at, that deserves a clap. But that is not the average person. And I'm sure the people that put their hand up, if I go and look through what they're actually doing, I don't think it's going to be represented as beautifully as what you're saying. Like old mate over there has 2 laptops. So he's living the hybrid model, right? On one version, he's attending to his own needs and his own principles. On the other hand, he's like, well, I get that there's people in the other realm that I need to reach.
How many people in the room have a Linux install on a MacBook on which they write code, which they deploy out into the crypto anarchist space? Okay, so a few.
Yeah, like 2.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have to be 3
I don't know where we're going with this.
Well, no, I think that, I mean, we also, now I'm just a little bit wary about demanding purity is what it is that I'm saying across the board. If you can only communicate with a certain set of people using a Linux distro and secure communication tools on even machines that we can't even verify the secure element on, it's a high bar even for people in our community.
I mean, that's why they say the ends doesn't justify the means, right? So there's a reason these sayings exist. It's like it doesn't matter how you got there. I mean, it really matters how you got there. It's not just the end result. And what you're saying for me, like, sure, there's people in the crowd, but they're not going around starting crypto-anarchist talks and calling themselves crypto-anarchist. And I don't know, maybe some are.
I got 3 people that I see in the space that I know that about.
And that's fine. But these are my values, you know? And I believe they're based on actual, let's say, principles that make sense to me. And if they don't make sense to you or other people, that's completely okay. I'm fine with that.
Just giving you the stage to be able to state that clearly.
Yeah.
Not really challenging you.
Yeah, no, of course. But at the end of the day, most people are hypocrites. If you look at 90% of the crypto projects, they're on Discord. Tell me why on their Discord. Discord is like powering AI data collection, is powering all kinds of nasty stuff. It takes you 5 minutes to Google the negative privacy impacts of Discord, and you'll find out it's not that challenging. But yet people are on Discord. I don't see any benefits of being on Discord apart. It's what everyone else is doing. And if that's the mentality we have, then that's, you know, a slippery slide.
I just got a set of slides from somebody who's speaking here today on crypto-anarchist principles on Google Slides.
You got to know the hybrid model. I have no problem with that data being shared, right? But it's still done on a Linux laptop. My Intel management is shut down and removed. I've ran Linux for the past 10 years. I have Graphene OS. I have never purchased the Apple product. So that's my life. And it makes me go to bed knowing I have integrity and I've applied my knowledge in the correct way that I believe adheres to my principles. I also know deviating from the path can be a slippery slope.
Thank you so much, Amin.
Thank you.